Good afternoon. My name is Linda Bradley. I'm the chair of the Document Review Committee, and I would like to call this meeting to order at 3:01 p.m. Roll call is I have Taimee Vanderpolder with me and Ann Meter. And we are all present and ready to go. I'd like to make a motion number 3 to adopt the agenda that I posted for you guys.
Second.
All in favor? So silly. Okay.
We'll just tell you if we don't
Okay.
like something.
So I started picking on board
Yeah, this was-
specific policies. And the first one that I looked at was our delinquent accounts. We recently updated our collections policy because we had to have it changed because of changes in state law. And now
Yeah.
this delinquent accounts policy more follows what
That's good, yes.
is
Sorry.
coordinated with the collections policy.
Mhm.
And I hope you have the red line.
Yeah, I accidentally gave Anne the one that did not have red line, because if I just printed them, they didn't red line, but if I downloaded it and printed it, then it
Yeah.
red line.
The
So I
only-
kind of made that mistake.
The thing that's scary is this policy has been in place so long that when you read the procedure, it says the payment due date for dues and assessment will be the first calendar day of the quarter. It's when we still, it's been a long time, but when I first moved here, we paid our dues quarterly, not monthly. So that's how long this policy has been sitting out there that's incorrect. And so that's part of the reason for selecting some of these. I have tried to match that with what's written in the collections policy, much that I did under the procedures. And I think I changed, there was the very last part of the association may choose to accept a deed in lieu of current and future dues or in lieu of foreclosure.
That was here.
And I erased that, and then there's the corrected one that basically gives the authority to the board of directors, which indeed it is now.
Yeah. Is there anything that we need to change in light of some of that stuff we heard last night?
Well, so we've, in theory, according to state law, we have done what we need to do for 2025. What's going to be looked at, and I think we're going to have to see what the execs say. I don't know how they're going to handle that. Somebody is going to have to, it would probably be document review, is going to have to look at the changes that are now in this new House bill that are going to be changes that are effective January 1, 2026, which is right around the corner.
Yeah.
And I thought after I got done with the meeting today, we'll go over this stuff because we'll still have to have the attorney and everybody look at it and say, yeah, this works. Because in theory, I don't have to change anything until that given date.
Right.
You know, and it looks like we're going to have to even completely revise, because I'm not sure if that's in 2028 or if that's in 2026, our foreclosure policies. That's hugely changed from what's even in there now. If I understood what Rich was telling us, he's going to send us and I don't know if you were there for that part of it. He's going to send to Michael to be distributed to all of us that PowerPoint that he did. Plus,
yeah, he said he didn't have it with last night, but that would be great.
And a table that shows this is 26 and this is 28, which will be a help. So
Right.
I'm hoping we go through that. Is there anything you saw in there that you did, you know, that you didn't think fit with it.
Yeah, I'll let you, I didn't, I thought it all made sense, but like I said, I gave Anne a bad copy, so I'm letting her take a minute to go through and see if she's seeing anything.
Okay.
It just all made sense. Some of the stuff that you changed. Things like
Yeah, the
the
delinquencies,
delinquent,
and
you've
that's the
added
whole thing.
fees.
I know that was something that Rich discussed without us of what is delinquent. And that may change in 26. Cause
Yeah.
we have a whole thing of where your accounts are late for 30 days and 60 days. If you go 90 days past due, then you're delinquent. You change
Delinquent, yeah.
from the late status to the delinquent status.
But it makes sense to get this done now so that when if we have to change dates and things, at least we have a policy that is worded well. We fix the bulk of it and then we can just
Yeah.
change dates.
So I have a question. I downloaded, it was called Exhibit A. That was, I assume, what goes to the person who is delinquent. Sort of
Oh, I
a,
didn't see that.
sort of a timeline. I don't think- Oh, this is what it was.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, notice of delinquency. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I guess, that does go to, when a person's past due or delinquent.
Because by now a lien has been filed, or it kind of happens with, it's sort of like there's another notice that is now required for us to send that we didn't have to send before. And that's why in some, it says where under procedure, if you go to the first bullet, the last bullet where it says further collection efforts, and rather than trying to describe all that, I simply wrote are described in detail in board policy number 2025-03 collections policy.
I'm trying to see where that is.
Look under procedure. It's almost to the bottom of the page. It's my first.
Okay,
It
for the-
would be the
for the
1, 2,
collection
3,
efforts,
4,
yeah.
5. It's the 5th bullet.
Right. We see it now.
Because it's rather than go through all of that description, you simply say, no, it's further defined in this policy, rather than
Makes sense.
rewriting something over and over and over again.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah. So like I say, there've been changes, and most of the actual changes and the requirements that have to be sent and the dates and the times, that's all spelled out in that other policy that the attorney had to look at and everything else. That's the collections policy. So anyway, so I think if you both agree, we will forward this on to have the attorney look at.
You good with it? You seeing anything? I know I'm kind of throwing at you into the.
Yeah.
You see anything that you think needs to change? Then there's, oh, that's all gone. So,
Okay.
all right. We good?
Good. Yes.
All right.
Okay,
I'm
we're
down.
gonna, we think and we could take a vote on this, but for now, I just want to say, yes, we're in agreement with this, and then we can take a final vote to what to
Yep.
send. The next one is the purchasing policy. And I have changed that to not just be purchasing, but procurement. And as you can see, this is an old document from 2017. Things have been changed a lot. And the one thing that's changed the same is for all capital and operations, procurement and purchases over $2,500. A minimum of 3 bids must be obtained from qualified bidders. That's why I'm calling it not just purchasing, I'm calling it procurement, because there's, you go through a policy to see that this is taken care of. I popped something out of another document that I added these first 2 paragraphs. In fact, quite a bit of it. The first 2 paragraphs, I opted out of that, that I added out of that. And then the steps you take, make sure that in the supplier selection, choose reliable suppliers based on pricing, then negotiate the terms with someone. See, it used to be a lot of times if we were purchasing, and this is capital, if we were purchasing, well, let's say sand from somebody, they would give us a quote for, this is a price for how many yards, but you can get a lower price for more yards. And in that way, you would determine, am I going to need this more, and am I getting the best pricing for what I'm doing? Much like we discussed at the meeting last night about when we were thinking of ordering the stickers.
Yeah,
The price, and sometimes that's how you negotiate and get the best pricing for stuff. And that's what we want to make sure is going on with administration, especially with all the new people we have. Generates purchase orders. A lot of that happens that we don't even see, just the stuff that comes to the board. But a lot of times Mike or Greg or somebody else will generate a purchase order for whatever is ordered through operations. And then, making sure that everything, that you're getting what you ordered. Check your goods when they come back, number 4. Make sure that it's what, their delivery, that it's accurate, that everything's, resolved and you're happy with the delivery. And then match the invoice, the reconciliation and the payment. When a manager submits for payment, he should be looking at the invoice and usually those are attached to the checks that we sign. And so you get to look at the invoice, see what it is. Sometimes you look at stuff. I know the thing that's always distressing to me, and it mostly happens with turf care, is they have to order stuff from a certain supplier. They get stuff that's for parts, but they have a shipping charge. And their shipping charge is, for me, it's huge. It's like $50, $60 a time we get it. And if we have to expedite it because we need it sooner, it even goes up from there. So it's like sometimes most places we don't have shipping charges with, but that's one of the places that has a lot of shipping charges and stuff. But it's just make sure that the invoice is accurate and they've included everything. And also to get them in time. It's important that if somebody needs, we cut checks every week. So in theory, you should be able to get them in so we're not paying late charges on stuff. Once in a blue moon, you'll see a late charge. Do I like to see late charges? No, I'm a real stickler about that. Especially if you can look at the invoice and see that the invoice was sent at such and such a date, but the manager didn't send it in for approval until much later. And that kind of tells you what's going on. So it's important for the managers to make sure that they're processing their invoices for their purchases.
yeah.
So that's the 5 things that I thought were important and I thought that everybody should remember to do. If it's a contract for such operational, the general manager shall be authorized to approve contracts for less than $10,000. But anything that's over that, we recently approved the Cisco contract for pool services because it's for their services and for our the stuff they put in the pools that. So that's like $4,800 worth of $48,000 worth of stuff for the season. So that's something that actually has to come to the board just to get that, to give the general manager permission to sign off on that contract.
Yeah, it's amazing how much those pool supplies are.
Well, it is, especially the chemicals. It's amazing how much they run over. Last year, I looked at this year's contract and looked at last year's. It's almost exactly the same, the contract and the amount that they said roughly they thought we would use. That was fine, except when you look at year end from 2024, that 48,000 became 56,000.
Big difference.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times it's chemicals. You know, if we get into really hot weather like we're supposed to have next week and hotter, they go through the chemicals quicker. And it's usually the big pool that goes through them to be able to balance that all. They've been working on trying to get it better, and hopefully they will this year. I haven't seen any really huge bills from Sesco yet because they come out weekly and they do different jobs that have to do with pool maintenance that our people are not qualified to do. You need somebody that's a pool operator. And so that's kind of what we pay for. Sometimes we'll see a billing for $1,000, $1,200, or $1,600. That's their fees for a month or a couple of weeks when they've been out. If any of our stuff goes south, any of our equipment, they come out and they'll fix it, but then we pay a separate fee for that. And usually there's not a lot of downtime and stuff, so it's not a big deal. And then on the very bottom, it said that there are times with procurement and purchasing that I had a asterisk that goods and services that the board is responsible for, like our yearly audit, our the legal stuff and our reserve studies. That's all something that's required, that is the responsibility of the board, and something will come forward in the form of a request of some kind to pay one way or the other. You know, like Joel brings it forward for the reserve study and the auditor. Those are operational expenses, but they're contracts that have to be approved by the board. So does anybody have any other comments on that?
I don't.
No,
And do you have anything? Or I know this is all kind of new. It's huge with some of the stuff you really go through in the association just to get something simple done.
Yeah. Well, these things need to be right, but Ray tells me that Ann fixes all his stuff for him, so.
Then she's already touched the tip of the iceberg.
She's been practicing on
speak.
Ray.
So there's nothing, you see anything wrong with that? Then we can agree that we'll send it
Yep.
forward.
that looks good. Yep.
So the last policy is our audio visual policy. We don't do audio visual any longer. As you can see, this is back again from 2017, which is before the pandemic, Zoom, all these wonderful things that we use. And I've chosen to rename this our online media policy. And the rest of it, I kind of much of it, I left what was said there before, other than because they talk about live streaming and about possibly, where now it's a definite thing that's done.
Yeah.
It is done. It isn't possibly. We used to have a gentleman that was the husband of a board member who used to do our audio. And when they moved from the valley, then it was kind of like, could we find somebody to do it or not? And it wasn't always a given that we would get it done. The board finally took it over, and for a long time, we only had audio. There was no visual, just the audio recordings. But now we definitely do live streaming. There's plenty of opportunities for board meetings that members can log in and participate during member comment portions, and using that option in Zoom. They're posted and have instructions for how to view and participate. And then the fact that they're always, all of our board meetings, and in fact, all of our committee meetings now are stored online so that people can go in and watch them on YouTube anytime they want, and they have access. It's like nothing's being done. It's total transparency. So, it said the only thing there was some crazy things in here that was like, it said that they'll first be implemented. No, they're already implemented. It's just taking out the real, it's like, this was done when they first started doing it, and we've come light years from that initial, maybe we can and maybe we can't, and how are we gonna do it?
Yeah, well,
And,
8 years makes a big difference in technology.
oh, definitely. So anyway, unless somebody says anything, there's like, in this policy, they say will, I say shall be implemented for board meetings and town halls and association committees, which covers everything.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm telling you, we go through this quick, girls. So we all agree we can send this to the attorney and everybody and let him look at it and then see if he's happy with what we've done for policy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The last one
Oh, I have
is,
that in my other, hang on,
it's cool.
I'll go get it.
I'll explain to Ann.
Sorry about the rumbling of chairs. I'll be right
That's
back.
cool. So we looked at all the ACC policies, and there was one that I asked the attorney about because it's really strange. It was called easements, encroachments, and vacations. And it basically stated that the association was to once a year post notice with this stuff in it, with given language regarding these different things. We've changed our policies. We now, normally it says you don't get an easement. You don't get, this, and vacations is being away from your property. I didn't even understand what that meant. But in going back and looking at some old board meetings from 2016, I've been going over minutes. I found that on 9/22/2016, there were a group of rescinded policies that the board already voted on in 2019. And I provided you with that page. And there is that magic number 1996-21, easements, encroachments, and vacations. So what I would like to do is submit this evidence to the board, explain to them that this had been rescinded in 2019, and then we can simply take that leftover policy, which is the only one that needs to be under ACC anymore, out of there, and then we can just simply take that whole section out of the board policies. It's just because it's all going to be in ACC, and from what I've understand, there's going to be changes with that too from that discussion that happened last night with the attorney.
Okay.
So that's the only thing, because this is the policy that was written way back then. I'll tell Ann, it goes, periodically there shall be published in the Sudden Valley Views a prepared notice by SVCA legal counsel that the association will not allow private encroachments on SVCA property and will not recognize adverse possession rights. We're granting currently easements on some of these lots that now require them to either run utility lines over some of our common ground, because the sewer lines, when they were originally put in here, showed that they went across these different properties. And at that time they were properties, but since then they've gone across parkland. And the water district is saying you already granted that in these original surveys, so you can't say that. So we've changed our policy on encroachments, and that's why otherwise I would have gone and said, we don't do that anymore. This is what we do now, but I don't have to, because in 2019, somebody else already said no. So I'm simply gonna bring this to the board. These other, the ones that we've looked at, I would ask for, I would make a motion that the committee approve sending 3 specific board policies for review. 2009-02 delinquent accounts, 2017-02 purchasing policy, and 2017-06 audio visual policy to the attorney for review.
Second.
I'll just say yes.
All in favor?
Yes.
We all say yes. It's
Unanimous.
unanimous.
So our next meeting is due for July 24th. Are you two available?
Yeah, I'm not traveling anymore.
You think?
Yeah, true that. Not in the next July and August. I'm sticking around.
We didn't have any minutes this time, but I will have minutes for the next meeting from what we discussed this meeting. And just move forward and happy joy. It's just, I'll have to get these ready and send them over to Michael and have him have the attorney look at them and then send them back. It's just, I think it's a simple thing and I don't think it's a big deal, but I think we have to run it by the attorney. I think we always have in the past to make sure he's happy with it, especially the delinquent accounts, because everything should basically be able to follow with our collection policy. And that's why I just referenced it. I thought, why spell it all out again? It's just silly. But if you're all available, I think we looked at the 24th. Let me know if something comes up that you won't be available on the 24th, and we'll reschedule. I may send you guys out an email once I take a look at that PowerPoint that we saw last night, and also the spreadsheet that he sent with the 2028 dates or 2026 dates. And I have already the number of that. I think you missed that part of it. There's actually
No,
a
I
bill.
heard it either. I was on Zoom and then I was actually there at the end of that when he was talking about that. But everything
Yeah.
else I heard on Zoom.
There's, it's like they did a modification of a bill for stuff that applied in 2024. And I was concerned because there were members going, Linda, don't you have to do this and don't you have to do that? But then those things were like, they didn't apply. That's why I want to look at what the actual stuff says, because some of it said that if you're still under the auspices of the declarant. And my understanding, and that was one question I think I asked him early on, was the declarant, to my understanding, is the developer that developed any of these condos or any of these homeowners associations, much like Suncadia, I believe is still under the developer. I don't think they're completely divorced from the developer yet. They're still developing. But it says sometimes if you're under them, these things apply. And it's like, that's why I'm going, I want to understand that if I'm not under the developer anymore, what applies? There's questions that I have, and it's just.
There's a lot we're going to have to do in the next few
I may be
years.
sending you guys, I may put something together and send you something, because depending upon what the execs decide to do, because this is something we can't sit on. Because this is stuff that's going to come at us in 2026.
Yeah.
And that's right around the corner. And so we may be kind of going, we're not going to do the easy stuff anymore. Because it's going to be stuff that has to be brought forward. I don't know. The thing that I don't know is that if there are changes in our bylaws, I don't believe if it's required by law, the membership votes on it. You have to inform them of it, but they don't vote on it because they can't overrule state law.
That
It's
makes
kind of
sense.
that one footnote that we have on the dues and assessments. There's a footnote in that whole section of the bylaws. And I may send that page, but it's going to be stuff like that's going to be going away, or we're going to be adding it till we get to 2026. Then it gets changed again. Then it may change in 27, and then finally, and at last but not least, in 2028.
Right.
So, because some of this stuff with changing our restrictive covenants, I'm like, really? Because normally that's one of the most difficult things we could ever have to do in this association. Is it requires such a high majority of everybody. In
Yeah,
all.
but like I said, if it's required by law, we don't really have a choice. So you can't put it to a vote. You can't have them decide whether to break the law or not, you know?
Yeah, and we're gonna have to see what's already in the restrictive covenants that matches with it, but what's without it, because in theory, you know, are we going to have to add that because it's a change in law? I believe there are two things in there currently. One about flagpoles and another one about dishes. I think it's things that I thought of when he was talking about that last night, but we'll talk about that another time. So we have completed our business. We tentatively think our next meeting's on July 24th. We have completed our business, and I move to adjourn at 3:32 p.m.
I second. And we
Spencer,
both
you
vote yes.
there?
Yes.
Oh, unanimous.
All
Spencer,
right.
just go ahead and leave the meeting.
All right, sounds good.
All
Okay,
right.
bye.
Thanks, Linda. Take
Bye.
care.